After the accident, Jason was in utter shock as he saw the identity of the driver. It was Michael, a longtime old ex of Olivia from college days that was obsessed with her after their breakup. But what was he doing here? Why was he doing this? Was he stalking us this whole time? The overwhelming feeling of confusion and shock was evident in Jason's demeanor as he was trying to figure out the reason for his actions. Michael was now fully out of the vehicle, breathing heavily as he stared at Jason intensely from head to toe. Jason's concern slightly shifted as he realized there was no movement from inside the vehicle as Olivia was still inside. She seemed to be unconscious, but he could not fully verify her status as Michael was still standing there, anchoring himself in the position and barricading the area, not allow Jason to make a single step forward. In the tense standoff, Michael started to gather his words and slightly made some small utterances that was unclear. As his voice started to crackle, he boldly said, "You can't have her." Jason was concerned of the mental state of Michael as to not trigger any erratic actions. As he proceeded to walk towards the vehicle, Michael slowly leaned in the vehicle to retrieve something, as he made a slight grunt. He pulled out a shotgun from the vehicle and repeated, "You can't have her," but in a stronger and firmer tone. Jason slowly raised his hands in concern to try not to escalate the situation as Michael was unpredictable and Olivia was still in the vehicle. Jason then asked Michael why was he doing this. There was a long tense standoff. Michael confessed that he has been stalking them for years and that he lived across the road from them when they were in the city. He watched them, followed their every movement and even attempted to break into their apartment. Jason was in complete shock at Michael's confession after all these years. Jason then remembered an instant not too long ago when he felt an uncomfortable presence while in the living room looking at properties and that it was Michael lingering close by. Jason then snapped back to reality and then slowly proceeded to walk towards Michael while reassuring him that he won't do anything and that he only wants to talk. As Jason began to reach closer, Olivia started to become conscious and made small movements in the vehicle. Michael then got distracted as he turned around to look at Olivia. This was now Jason's only chance to attack Michael. He summoned up his courage and strength and made a fast burst running towards Michael. Michael quickly turned around getting ready to take aim as he was startled at Jason's reaction. But Jason struck Michael in the face with a powerful closed fist, knocking Michael to the ground and temporarily stunning him and causing him to drop his firearm. Jason then quickly and cautiously pulled Olivia from the wreckage as she was still startled, as he checked to make sure she was okay. Jason tried to retrieve the firearm, but Michael slowly began to regain his composure as he shakenly began to get up. Jason saw the opportunity to escape before Michael fully regained consciousness, so he held Olivia's hand and they both ran off into the deep darkness of the lonely forest, moving trees and brushes in the process, as the night was still and the forest was brutally quiet, as the only thing heard was their footsteps and their heavy breathing. They ran for a few minutes until they stopped to check the area around them. They could not see anything around them as they were surrounded by pitch darkness. The only source of light was the distant stars in the sky. They waited in silence, cautiously listening and looking around. They heard a tree bark crunch in the distance. They both paused in fright, but heard nothing after as they listened attentively. Then in the far distance they heard a single gunshot fire, breaking the silence of the forest. Jason and Olivia knew that Michael was getting closer, so they decided to run. In the far distance between the trees, they saw a single house with a porch light on, so they ran to that house hoping to seek refuge and safety. As they got closer, they could hear footsteps in the distance as Michael was getting closer. Jason and Olivia finally reached the house as they were out of breath, and they started to knock on the door and called out for help. They continued to try to get the attention of the homeowner, then suddenly the door began to open. It was Leo that greeted them at the door. They were so happy and relieved to see a familiar face. They explained to Leo that they were in danger and needed somewhere to stay for safety as they were being chased by a maniacal man with a shotgun. Leo was surprised and taken back by what was happening but decided to help them to keep safe. Leo and his wife Paulette were home, and Jason and Olivia proceeded to tell them what had happened, and they were in complete shock as to what transpired, and Paulette told them to stay until it's safe to leave. Olivia inquired if Leo had a phone so that they could call the police, but Leo stated that he has no phone and that the cell service in that area could not be reached because of how far and rural they were. As it got later in the night, they decided to stay there until in the morning. Then suddenly they heard a knock on the door. They all looked at each other with shock and confusion as to who it could be. Then there was a pause. Then there was another knock on the door. Leo hesitated for a while but eventually went to the door as both Jason and Olivia went to hide in the bedroom and Paulette remained in the living room. As they hid, Jason could hear the front door open. They could also hear a conversation but could not make out exactly what was being said. After a few minutes have passed, there was silence as they could not hear anyone or anything anymore. Shortly after, they could hear Leo saying that the coast is clear, and they could come out. Jason and Olivia were now relieved as they cautiously made their way back to the living room. To their utter shock, they saw Leo, Paulette and Michael standing beside each other in the living room, as Michael had the shotgun in his hand. Leo then said to Michael, "How did you manage for her to get away?" In an unpredictable twist, it was then Jason and Olivia realized Leo and Paulette were in on it this whole time.